Hi everyone, I'm Steve and this is the College Support Network. I have worked as a college advisor in the past and I also have experiences in college admissions, financial aid, as well as academic advising. I'm really passionate about college access and I know applying to colleges can be really confusing as well as really frustrating, right? So that's why I'm here to provide you with the most quality information and most accurate information so you can reach your college goals. In today's video, I want to talk about college lists. In specific, I want to talk about 4 different things. First is, why is having college lists even important? Second is how to not build a college list. Third is how to actually build a college list. And fourth is just some tips and advice that I have for you all. It should be a pretty short but really informational video today, so as always, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Alright, let's get started. Okay, so why is having a good college list important? The first reason I could think of is college applications are just getting really expensive these days. For example, if you want to apply to one Cal State campus, that's $70. Similarly, the UCs are $70 per application to a campus as well. And for private schools, it really depends on what school you're applying to, just because, as we mentioned in our previous video about private colleges, each of them work on their own and they all work independently of one another. For instance, Stanford charges $90, Caltech charges $75, and Scripps College costs $60 to apply to. In general, private colleges are around $35 to $90 per application. So for students that are applying to a lot of schools, let's say 4 UCs, 4 Cal States, and 2 private schools, that's a lot of money that your parents, or maybe you, if you're working and you have money, that's a lot of money that either you or your parents are going to be spending. So having a strong college list of only colleges that you want to apply to will actually save you a lot of money before you even start college. So I do recognize that a lot of students are eligible for fee waivers depending on a lot of different eligibility requirements. However, this doesn't mean that you should still apply to a lot of different schools. This actually leads to my second reason as to why having a strong college list is important. Because even though you get a lot of fee waivers and you might not have to pay for every single school, you still are going to have to apply to every single school. This means if you're applying to a bunch of private schools or CSUs, UCs, and private schools, you will have to fill out the application, write the different essays, provide your academic information, personal information, and all the components that are related to an actual application. So if you don't want to go to a bunch of schools and you're applying just to apply, this can actually waste a lot of your time. So that's why having a good, strong college list of only colleges that you want to go to will allow you to be efficient with your time and then only apply to the schools that you really want to go to. And the last reason to have a strong college list is because you only really want to apply to the schools that could provide you with the best environment so you could excel as a student, whether that be academically, personally, professionally, or whatever it may be for you. So before I talk about how to actually build or create a strong college list, I just want to briefly talk about different things I've seen in the past based on my own personal experience as well as my experience as a college advisor as to how to not build a college list. So the first reason is applying to colleges solely for the reason of getting away from your parents. So I recognize that a lot of students build their college list solely off of this factor, and there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to get away or wanting to be as far away as your parents as possible. However, you just want to make sure that this isn't the only reason why you're applying to a college, or this isn't the only reason why you're actually going to end up going to a college. The next way to not build a college list is only putting schools that your friends are planning on applying to or that your friends are currently at. I totally get this. I know you want to be around your friends, you want to be around people that you're comfortable with, people that you know. However, this shouldn't be the only reason why that college is on your list. It should provide you with what I said before, an environment for you to grow academically, professionally, as well as personally. And the last way not to build a college list is only applying to schools or only having schools on your list that you're familiar with. This could mean only applying to schools that your friends told you about, or maybe your family told you about, or maybe it's a school with a prestigious name or a school that you've heard a lot about in the news. When building your college list, you really want to do your own research and understand why that college may or may not be a good fit for you. I know a lot of students get trapped in the idea of going to a school that is prestigious or a school that has a great name because it could give you a good job at the end, or it just sounds cool to say that you went to XYZ school or ABC school. However, if they don't provide you with the right environment to grow, then it's not going to be a great campus for you. I know a lot of students that really want to go to Harvard or Yale or an Ivy League or maybe some top schools in California. but then that school doesn't have the major that they want for the career that they want, obviously that wouldn't be a good option for you. And I know a lot of students, like I said, get into this trap of going to that great school even though it doesn't provide them with what they need to excel in life. That's why having a strong college list is really important, and this is why you shouldn't be applying to schools this way. Okay, so now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this entire video. How to build a college list, or just some things that you should consider when building your college list. First and foremost, and I think the most important thing that students should think about when applying to colleges or creating the college list is understanding match and fit. So I know a lot of people have different definitions for what exactly match and fit is. However, for me, match just refers to a school's academic suitability for a student. So when I think about match, I think strictly about numbers. For instance, does the average freshman for the school that you're applying to have similar GPAs, test scores, as well as grades that you currently have? A great way to really understand this is by looking specifically at the school that you're applying to and looking at the most recent freshman profile for the students that just got admitted into that school. The majority of schools will have all this information available for you. I'll leave a link below for some of the freshman profiles for CSU schools as well as UC schools to see if you match well compared to other students going to a specific campus. Also, when you're looking at the freshman profile for a specific campus, I really advise students to look at the mid 50%. So you might be asking, what does this mean? This means when you're looking at GPA and test scores of a freshman profile for a campus, you want to look at the mid 50% to see if you would be a good match or not. Generally, if you are in that 50% range, it might mean that you are a good match. If you're below that range, it might mean that that school might be a little bit out of reach. Or if you're above that range, it might mean that you're a little bit overqualified to go to that school. However, the caveat here is that that mid 50% is just a generalization. There are plenty of students that are below that 50% and still get in. And sometimes there are students well above that 50% that don't get in at all. So this is just a good way to see if you might be a good match. It doesn't guarantee admission or anything like that. And when I think about fit, I think way beyond just academic factors. For me, the school that best fits a student should also be able to meet their financial, personal, and social needs, as well as their academic needs. When thinking about colleges to apply to that have a good fit, you really want to think about if that school is going to mesh well with your own personalities, and if it's going to be able to provide you with a space to feel comfortable as well as to grow as an individual. So that's what match and fit means to me. When working with high school students as a college advisor, I always told them this one really important rule that I follow, and that is, you should categorize your schools by match, we should prioritize them by fit. Creating a college list and categorizing the schools based on how well they match you in terms of your academics. And then from there, narrowing down your list and prioritizing the schools that fit best with you and your needs. Next, I'll just go over some brief things that you should consider as well as some questions that you should be asking yourself when creating your college list. The first is, does it have the major that I want to get me to the career that I want? In my last video, I talked all about why having a major was important and then how to choose a major from there. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already. But with all that being said, you only really want to apply to the schools that have the majors that you need or the majors that you want to get the job that you want. The next thing to think about is, will you be able to afford to go to this school? This means, can you pay for it out of pocket, or if you're willing to take out loans, can you take out loans and still be able to afford going to this school? I think a lot of students forget about financial fit when they're applying to colleges or creating their college list. If you know for sure you aren't going to be able to afford going to a school, it might not be the best option to have it on your college list. However, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't apply to the college at all. This is just one of the million different things that you need to think about when creating your college list. So it's a good idea to think about affordability now when you're creating your college list and then narrowing it down from there. Similarly to affordability as well as major, you want to think about the cost of that major or cost of going to that school and your expected salary when you get out of college. For example, if you really want to go to this great nursing school and you know that you're going to get a great job after, you know you're going to have a really good salary, but you know you won't be able to afford it when you are in school, this might be a good idea to see the different types of financial aid that might be available to you to help you get through your degree, so then you could actually get that good salaried paying job after you graduate. Like I said, this really depends on the student, their goals, their needs, their financial situation, their family situation, and like I said, a million other different things. This is why it's really a good idea for students to contact a guidance counselor. My videos are just informational. I'm just trying to provide you with all the information that I have. However, I realize that every student's situation is different. That's why I always advise you to contact your guidance counselor whenever you need to. The next two questions to think about is, does it align with my educational goals as well as professional goals? As I mentioned before, you only want to apply to schools that fit your need, as well as be able to provide you with a space to grow as an individual. This means, does it have the facilities, the infrastructure, the professors, the staff to help you reach your educational goals as well as professional goals? I know this is a really hard question for a lot of students to answer, especially if you're in high school and unaware of a lot of the things that go on college campuses. But like I said, and like I'll keep mentioning, it's really important for you all now to do your own research and figure out what campuses might be a good idea for you to look into. Essentially, every major campus or college is going to have all this information on their main website. So it's really important for you all to take ownership of your education as well as your future and do some research to see if you're making the right choices. The next question to think about is, how important is distance to you? Like I said before, a lot of students only want to go to colleges that are far away from their families or parents or just far away from where they are from. And like I said, this is not a bad thing by any means. However, you don't want it to be your only reason why you're going to a school or applying to a school. The next thing about location that you want to think about is, do you want to live on campus or off campus? There are some schools that actually don't provide on-campus housing or freshman housing or dorming at all. So if this is something that's important to you, you really want to make sure that you're applying to the schools that can provide that for you. The next question to ask yourself is, does the school or class size matter to you? So what exactly does this mean? For students that come from a small city or don't want to be near big crowds, it might not be a good idea to go to a very large university because pretty much every single day when you're on campus, you're going to be surrounded by hundreds and thousands of students. However, if you're from a big city like Los Angeles or San Francisco or just any other big city and you want to get away from that big city vibe, you might want to look into a small school instead. I currently work for a large university, and a lot of students that I work with came from very small rural cities or just small cities in general, and they kind of had a bit of a culture shock once they got onto campus just because they weren't used to seeing so many people all around them. So if this is something that's important to you, definitely take it into account when you're applying to colleges. Class sizes are really important for students as well. Some students only want to be in intimate classroom sizes such as 20 or less, so then they can make sure that the professor or the TA can give them their full attention. However, some other students don't actually mind at all and are totally okay with being in class sizes of 300 or more students. This really depends on what you want and need. Some large universities have most of their classrooms with 200 or more students just because they can't accommodate students in every single small class. One thing to remember about class sizes is that it really depends on the level of the class as well as the subject. As we mentioned in our previous video, a lot of the GE classes or introductory classes that you take in your very first few semesters are going to be in large classrooms with large class sizes. However, once you get into your major a little bit more and once you get into your upper division classes, your classes get smaller and smaller. This is important because I know a lot of students think that large universities only have large classes, so even when you're a senior in your final project class or in your final upper division class, you're still going to be in a class with 300 other students. This isn't always the case. Depending on your major and like I said, depending on the level of the class could actually be 20 students or less. Also, another thing to remember about large class sizes is that a lot of them actually have discussions as well. So in your large lectures, you might be with a class with 300 students. However, in your discussion, you might be in a classroom with 30 students, so you have a more intimate space to learn more about each other, and then you get more attention from the TAs or the professor that's leading the discussion. The next thing to ask yourself is, are you interested in research at all? This is specific to some student groups just because I know a lot of students aren't interested in research. However, for the students that are, you just want to make sure that the campus that you're going to or the campus that you're applying to provides you with the space, the facilities, and the professors that allows you to do research. The UCs in particular are known for the research opportunities, so if research is something that you're definitely interested in, I recommend you to look at the UCs. However, as we mentioned in previous videos, a lot of private schools and CSUs also provide research. Another question for you to ask yourself when looking at schools is, does the school that I'm applying to have the extracurricular activities and/or clubs that I'm interested in? This is really important for students that really want to get involved on campus or maybe have a hobby or interest that they're really passionate about and they want to continue to pursue once they're in college. Similarly, for students that are really interested in participating in a sport, or maybe you really just want to go to a campus that has a strong sports vibe or maybe a strong sports environment, this is something else that you want to think about. When I worked as a college advisor, I had a lot of high school students that didn't apply to any of the UCs because they didn't have a football team. And I know this might sound like a crazy reason, but every student prioritizes things differently. So if having a football team is really important to you, then maybe the UCs might not be the best option. With all that being said though, this could be something that you take into account, but definitely please do not make this the only reason why you don't go to a school. Honestly, I could go on and on about different questions that students should ask themselves when applying to college or when they create their college list, such as, does the school have a religious affiliation that is important to me, or does the school have a diverse student body which is important to me? There are a lot of different questions that students need to ask themselves. However, every student has different things that are really important to them when looking at a college campus, so that's why I really advise you all to just take some time out of your day, maybe just a couple of hours, if not a couple of minutes, just to think about what's important to you and what do you want out of college. If that's a football team, if that's research, if that's a really great major or a really great whatever it may be, make sure to do that research yourself and just take some time out of your day if you can. So now I just want to go over some tips to help you build a strong college list. So the first tip is just get to know yourself a little bit more. For this, I really recommend students to take time out of their day and make a list of what they want out of a college and some must-haves that the college that they're applying to must have. Like I said, if the school has to have a football team or if the school has to have research or whatever it may be, just make sure that the colleges that you're applying to are able to provide you with what you need to meet your academic and professional goals, as well as provide you with the college experience that you want. The next tip is just to start early. I know a lot of students wait until college apps are open before they start creating their college list. However, I really advise you to do this way beforehand, because the later you start, the more likely you'll have colleges on your college list that don't match and fit your own needs. The next tip is to just not be super specific when you're first creating your list. When I worked as a college advisor, I told a lot of my students that the very first college list should be around 15 to 20 schools. And then from there, they could start narrowing it down based on match and fit, like I mentioned before. In terms of narrowing down your college list based on match and fit, I do have a couple different tips to give students. The first is just reviewing college websites. I really advise a student to look at the main website of a campus that they're applying to, just because it should provide you with the information about whether this campus is able to provide you with the things that you want and need. The next thing is to just sign up for emails and updates from the college that you're interested in. A lot of these campuses have a sign up email list that you could sign up for and receive information every couple of weeks, every couple of days, or even every couple of months. And this is a good way for you to stay up to date with the school that you're interested in and see what new things that they may be able to offer you. The next tip is really take advantage of the support that admissions representatives and admission officers can offer you. I used to always make my students call the admissions office of the schools that they were interested in just to get an advisor on the line, so then they could ask questions specifically about that school and the major that they were interested in. You'll be surprised about how happy admissions representatives are to hear from students that are interested in going to the schools. The next 3 tips might be a little bit harder because we are in pandemic times still, but the first is try to visit the college campus if you can. I know this might be hard right now to do physically, however, I do know that there are a lot of schools that are actually providing virtual tours of their campus. So this is a really good idea to learn more about the colleges that you're interested in and then also see what the campus looks like. The next thing is attend college fairs and talk to representatives. So as I mentioned before, representatives are always pretty happy to talk to prospective students, and they're usually available at college fairs. However, during the times that we're in, this might be a little bit harder. But similar to virtual tours, I do know that a lot of campuses are actually providing college fairs virtually as well. So this is a really good opportunity to take advantage of if the campus that you're applying to does provide for it. And the last is go to college presentations at your local high school. And like I said before, this might be a little bit harder because of the times that we're in. However, I do think it's a good idea to contact your high school career center or maybe your college advisor to see if they can maybe set up a virtual college presentation with different college campuses so you can learn more about them. And the last tip to narrow down your college list is just to contact any current students or maybe even alumni of the school that you want to apply to. This is a really great opportunity for you to learn more about the first-hand experiences of students that went to that college or maybe are currently at that college. The next step for creating a strong college list for yourself is just by dividing the schools into different tiers of competitiveness or selectivity. The best way I've found to divide schools into tiers is by dividing them into most competitive, competitive, as well as least competitive. When dividing your schools into tiers, we could actually use the mid 50% rule that I mentioned earlier in this video. We're looking at the most competitive tier. We're looking at schools where your academic profile does not meet or is not as strong as the middle 50% of the freshman applicants that were just admitted into that campus. For this tier, I really recommend students to look at 1 to 3 schools that they want to apply to. We're looking at the competitive tier. We're looking at schools where your academic profile does fit the middle 50% of the freshman applicants that were just admitted. In this tier, I usually tell students to apply to a couple more schools than the previous tier, usually around 3 to 5 campuses. And the last tier is least competitive. In this tier, we're looking at schools that you actually go above and beyond the academic profile of the mid 50% of students that were just admitted into that campus. Similar to the most competitive tier, I usually tell students to look into 1 to 3 campuses to apply to in this tier. Just remember though that the mid 50% rule is just a general rule of thumb. It's not going to guarantee or deny admission to a campus. However, it's just one tool that you can use to build your college list. And the next tip is just contacting your guidance counselor at your local high school. In my last video, I talked about how guidance counselors should know you pretty well in terms of academics and personally. So they should be able to tell you about which colleges might be a good option for you, and they can actually help you build your college list as well. In the last video, I also mentioned that some students might not have the best relationship with their guidance counselors. For students in this situation, I just recommend you to talk to anyone that knows you well, like I said, academically and personally, so then they can help you build your college list. And the last and final tip that I'm going to mention is something that I've been mentioning pretty much throughout this entire video already, but it's just to make sure that your college list fits you well in terms of your academics, social, and financial needs. The colleges that you apply to should really fit you inside and outside of the classroom. It should provide you with a space that you want to be at and a place where you feel comfortable and want to learn. I really want you all to be successful, and I think having a strong college list can really get you there. That's why I really advise you all, as always, to really do your own research and to take ownership of your education and future and figure out what colleges are going to be the best option for you. So that's all the information and tips I have for you today. However, before you leave, I do have 2 questions for you all. The first is, what's the most important thing that you're considering when you're applying to colleges or creating your college list? And the second is, how many colleges do you plan on applying to? Feel free to answer in the comments below. With all that being said, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and spending that with me learning about college. I think that's super awesome. As always, thumbs if you learned and subs if you loved. Take care, y'all.